Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about my brand new Dungeons & Dragons campaign, the Drogar campaign, and this was played with the hardcore player in February 2025. Extremely excited. This was played with the brand new 2024 core rule book, all three of them. First time I've ever done that. I was extremely excited to play this. So it's me and the hardcore player, and physical table game played at my kitchen table, right? And actually, we have a dining room, and at my dining room table, we used Legos for all the official minifigures and for the terrain, and we used the 2024 core rule books. He actually rolled up his character and made. So the hardcore player actually purchased the 2024 Player's Handbook, and that's the only book he owned from the core rule books. And then he made a dwarf ranger by the name of Schleepy Stoneyhorn. Sleepy Stoneyhorn, right? And this was his dwarf ranger. Very cool character. And he was first level, right? So this is the first time we've ever really played D&D, me and the hardcore player. So he came and he said, so I have everything, set, but I didn't roll my hit points because I know that's, a question. And I was like, okay. So first of all, you're going to roll a D10, for the ranger. But I'm also going to give you this D6, right? So I gave him, so in my games, one of the problems with Dungeons & Dragons is if you get inspiration and then you get additional, and then you do something great again, you can't have additional inspiration, right? So what I do is I own the official Dungeons & Dragons Yahtzee dice, and so I give out those D6s and I allow people to use them on a D20 roll or on a damage roll. And so I was like, this is the first time you're playing in my home. You made time for this physical game. You drove all the way here. So I'm going to give you this D6. So he rolled 3 for his hit points, and then I got a +6. So he's at level 1 with 9 hit points. That would become very important as we continue to play, right? So, and I'm not going to bury the lead. He lived through the session, but it was a little fraught. Man, Dungeons & Dragons at first level is freaking precarious, man. You can definitely murk a first level character quite easily, all right? And this was, me and one player, so he doesn't have any backup, right? So this is pretty hairy. So this Dwarf Ranger, so we start 25 miles, actually about 35 miles north of Phandalin, in the Forgotten Realms, right, where the new Netflix show will take place, where Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves took place, and Ed Greenwood's classic default Dungeons & Dragons setting, and he's currently in the Neverwinter Woods, so he's making his way through the Neverwinter Woods, and it is winter time, and the ground is covered with 16 inches of snow, so he's trudging through. And so one of the things that I like to do when I start a campaign is I say, okay, so I told, the player, and again, this is our first session. This is the first time we're playing Dungeons & Dragons together. And I said, listen, I'm going to ask you questions about your character. You can give me an answer right away, or you can wait, right? You can write down the question and then wait, and then give me the answer when it comes to you, right? So I said, okay, so you're coming from the Mount Hotenau direction, right? You're a dwarf. What is your relationship with Mount Hotenau? Have you never been to Mount Hotenau? Have you visited Mount Hotenau, or do you live in Mount Hotenau? Right? And so the hardcore player did not have an answer right away. He's like, okay, I'm going to, he wrote it down, and then he waited, right? And so he continues down, and I said, okay, so you're continuing down, and we're going to make your first perception roll, right? So whenever I make, a roll for the first time in any of my Dungeons & Dragons games, I walk everybody through. Okay, I'm like, okay, you're making a perception roll. Let's take a look at your sheet. Wisdom, perception is under wisdom, right? Are you proficient in perception? He's like, yes, I am. So he gets a +2 there, right? But his wisdom is a +3, right? So he's got a 15, right? A 15. I'm sorry. He's got a +5 in to his perception, right? So I said, okay, this is going to be your target number is going to be 12, which means that you need a 7 on the dice. You need a 7 on your die, right? Because you get a +3 for your wisdom, and then Jesus, yeah, you need a +7 for your wisdom, and you have a +3 from your wisdom bonus. You get a +2 from your proficiency bonus because you're proficient. That's a +5. You need a 12. You need to roll a 7. So just working it through, just to make it. And actually, this guy knew what he was doing. It wasn't needed, but I always make sure I walk somebody through, the parts of the role when we start, right? And it's helpful because it refreshes me and refreshes the player. So he actually natural 20s this role. So one, he found a cliff, 120-foot cliff that is like 3 stages and absolutely treacherous, right? So first of all, it's a 40-foot drop. It drops into a bunch of deadfall trees, which are all spiky and ready to kill anyone, right? And then there's jagged rocks. This is a precipitous person-killing cliff, right? But he got a 20, right? So I said, in addition to that, you can see where wolf packs have been going up and down this cliff, right? And making their ways and actually climbing, right? And they are wolf packs. They're mundane wolves, but you can see their prints, right? And he's like, okay, I got it. So I was like, so in this forest, this cliff is a danger, and also this wolf pack is a danger, right? So at this point, he's like, okay, so I'm going to traverse the cliff. I'm like, so you have to go down the cliff, which is very treacherous, or you have to walk around, and it's clear that this is going to be, this could delay you by half a day to a day to get to Phandalin. He's like, okay, I think I could make it down. And so I said, okay, first of all, we now have to determine if you're going to use a rope, if you're going to use a grappling hook, or some other way to get down. And I want to explain equipment. So I explained to him, in the Scott Garibay Dungeons & Dragons game, you don't have to worry about mundane equipment, right? And you're a ranger. Anything a ranger would logically have, you can have it. So you could just pull rope out of your backpack. You could also pull a grappling iron out of your backpack. But if you say, oh, no, I travel light, I only have a rope, then I'll probably give you one of these D6s, one of these Yahtzee D6s to use on one of your future rolls. I will reward you not abusing this privilege and, saying, because you want to have the gear your character would logically have, but I don't want you to have to, go into town and spend 8 coppers for a piece of rope, ridiculous, right? So I explained to him how I work. Now, potions, magic items, those are tracked. Those get written on your sheet. But mundane equipment, just pull out what you need, right? And again, you're a dwarf ranger. So if you pull out a rapier, that's going to be weird, So I explained it to him. He's ready to roll, right? So at this point, he says, well, one of the things that's interesting is I actually have Featherfall, right? So I could, jump for the Featherfall. So while he's deciding, I say, okay, actually, at this point, you actually hear a human groan behind you about 100 feet. And so here's where it starts to get fascinating. It's already been interesting. But I'm going to cut it off here, and then I'll continue telling the rest of the story. Thank you so much for letting me share my Dungeons & Dragons journey with you. This is a great campaign. I'm really enjoying it, and it's an honor to share this with you. My first D&D 2024 core rulebook campaign. It's everything I dreamed it would be. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion about the 2024 core rulebooks. Please consider subscribing and have a fetch millennium.